Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Madcap Hats studio in beautiful Ontario, Canada. I'm really proud of today's project. We have on deck a wonderful item that you can add to your sewing business or your craft business, or heck, just make one for yourself and all the people that you love. We're going to make a headband with a visor, and I'm going to show you how to draft the perfect visor, because I've gone through all my bags of patterns from 36 years and found this one, which is great because it's got a nice wide brim, clears my glasses. I think it's just perfect. This is a very easy to make project. You can embellish it in all sorts of ways. You can make the visor from craft foam if you want, and then cover the edge with a bias tape. There's all sorts of possibilities. With sun protection with style, our motto here at Madcap Hats, and our goal with our project today. This is such a lightweight and easy item for a piece of headwear that you can throw it in your golf bag. You can just leave it in your car for those times when you're out shopping and it's a sunny day. You need something to cover your eyes and your face. So let's get started. Let's make the perfect headband with visor. The visor is a really important part of this project, and I'm going to share this pattern with you. You can look at it here and stop this video to make the notes, but I'm also going to put it on my website. There'll be a page for linking to it on the descriptions, which will make it easier. And also we're going to use stabilizer in this project. So I use sew-in stabilizers, a heavyweight or an extra firm stabilizer. But use whatever you have in hand, but I recommend you use 2 pieces. So I'm going to suggest that there's 3 different sizes of elastic that work great. The 1/2 inch wide, or the 3/4 inch wide, or the 1 inch wide. That's 13 millimeters, 19 millimeters, or 25 millimeters. The casing, you're gonna just adjust the width depending on the elastic that you choose. And our actual headband is a rectangle that's about 19.5 inches by 4 3/4 inches deep, or 49 centimeters by 12 centimeters deep. And you'll put in little notches for where that you are going to start sewing the visor onto one edge, and eventually you're going to completely sandwich that visor into the headband by bringing those 2 edges together at the center. But we'll give this a little look now, and you can stop the video if you need to make these notes on the width of the headband piece. And the elastic casing, 9 inches long, cut a piece that's 2.5. Some of the visors I've made with a foam brim, so you don't need to worry about interfacing. This pink one has a craft foam brim. So you're going to trace your visor right on the foam brim. I'm using my chalk pencil, and I have a trick for cutting. So you're just going to make a first clip, and then you're just going to push the scissor partly open through, so you don't get any jagged edges, especially if you're not planning to cover the edge of that visor like I did with the pink one. So it makes a beautiful clean cut when you just push the scissors through. You don't need to worry about it on the inside curve though, because that's going to be sewn under. And then just cut out a notch to mark the center of the visor. And there you have it. Ready to make a headband sun visor. So I'm using this funky peace sign fabric left over from my mask making days. And now I'm going to make a visor with the interfacing. So the first thing I do is I trace the pattern of the visor onto one of the layers of interfacing, and it's usually the layer that's going to be the top of the visor. And I'm going to sew it onto the back of that one piece of fabric, and I'm going to sew it all the way around. So now I have an outline of a visor in sewing. So I'm going to bring the underside of my visor, my under brim, and I'm going to sandwich it between another piece of interfacing, which is on the outside, and then the 2 right sides of the fabric are facing each other, and I'm going to sew all the way around the outside, trim it, And then I usually use my serger to go around the seam, but you can just do another seam and do notches on the curves. Trim it, turn it right side out, and it's beautiful. I'm going to give it a quick press, and then I'm going to top stitch on that outside curve and close the inside, and then mark a notch, just like I did with the foam visor. So now I'm ready to sew the visor onto the headband. So we're going to make one in foam and one in fabric. I'm going to use, I have two different pieces of elastic. I'm trying the 1 inch and the 3/4 inch. And I just have to determine what's the right side for the peace signs to go so they're not upside down. And I'm going to sew about a 1/4 inch in from the outside edge, making sure that I don't fold that headband fabric and get it caught. And now I'm going to roll the visor slightly and sandwich it inside the two long edges of the headband. And then I'll sew them together, being very careful so that again I don't catch that bottom layer and cause a fold or a tuck. And both ends are going to be left open. I can't use a bodkin to pull this right side out because it's just going to be something that it won't be strong enough to do. So it doesn't take long. Once you get to the visor part, then it's easy to pull it right side out. So here I go. I'm now doing the big reveal. And what I'll do is once I have it all turned right side out, I'm going to just sort of work it so that I know that the two seams are in line with the edge of the visor. I might pin it down and then I'm going to press it, sort of straightening that curve that the headband wants to make while I press. And I'll also press both sides of the visor. And now I'm ready to make my elastic casing. So I've got my 9-inch tube and I'm using the 1-inch elastic for this, so I didn't trim anything off. And once I pull the elastic through to one end, I'm going to sew it down on the one end that as it's working its way through. And then I'm going to ruffle it up and sew it on the other end. Just sew it in far enough to catch the fabric and the elastic. That seam is going to be now enclosed, so nobody's going to see that as we tuck it into each side of the headband with a clever fold. So all secure, just trim off all the extra ends. And now we're going to put right sides together so that I've centered the seam in the casing in the middle of one of the sides of elastic. So that'll be my back side. And I'm just going to fold over both sides of the headband at the end. And I'm going to sew inside, like closer to the visor, but not that far in, just enough to cover the sewing that I did on the elastic casing. Trim all of my loose threads and my ends. And when you pull it out, voila, look at how nice that looks. And it makes a nice unstretchy cotton suddenly become stretchy. So this is why I love this project, because you can use up all your little bits of cotton. And I'm going to do it on the other side. So right sides together, and there we go. One down. We're going to make 3 altogether. So here is the one that's going to have the foam visor, and I'm using the 3/4 inch elastic. So I've just sort of traced where that elastic, the width is, and I'm going to trim off the extra after I sew a casing that's large enough for that elastic to slip through, but not too large. If you make it too baggy, you don't get that beautiful ruffling. And again, I'm going to sew one end of the elastic as I pull it through onto one end of the casing, and then pull it through to the other end and sew that side down as well. And there we have our ruffled casing. And now this is a tricky part, because with my industrial machine I get marks from my feed dog on foam, and it's annoying. So basically I'm just using some scraps of interfacing, and I've cut it to match the inner curve of the visor, and I'm going to put that down against the feed dog, and then once I finish sewing I'm going to just cut it away at the seam, and it's going to get enclosed into the headband when I sew the two sides together. So you can use anything for this if you have the same problem I do, and you can use like a scrap piece of cotton. You just need to cut away at the seam once you have finished your sewing, and there'll be no marks. So the foam visor is a little bit harder to keep twirled up or turned up inside as you make this sort of burrito sandwich, where you are cutting the interfacing away, and then you're going to roll up that foam and try to encase it in the other side of that long seam. So just take your time. Once you've made a few of them, you'll get the hang of it, and you can start actually at the end and work all the way through once you have the hang of it. I like to start at the middle and then turn it over and go from the middle to the other side. And then again, be careful when you're pulling the foam out, though. You don't want to rip it, especially since this one doesn't have any sort of bias on the edge. And I'm just putting a top stitch on the upper edge of the headband. And you can also give it a little steam with your iron if you sandwich the foam in between two layers of cotton and just do a quick run over. You'll find that it just goes right back into shape. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put the right sides together of our elastic casing in our headband and just envelope the two ends over the elastic casing, and then turn it over and do it the same on the other side. And there we have it. And there I am. Good morning. Now, this is our next one. I'm going to show you how to do an insert of fabric in the band. Just so these are actually reversible, all of them, so you might as well take advantage of that and do something different on the other side. So you could put buttons on it when you're finished, or you could put a bow. So I'm just going to pin a bow on this one so I can take it off if I want to. And it's the same pattern piece that we're going to use, but you're just going to have to sew the two pieces of fabric together and then use your pattern piece to just trim away anything that's extra. So I've sewn the denim onto my cotton, and I'm just going to press that, and then I'm going to do a top stitch along the top of that seam, and I'm using my chalk pencil just to cut away the extra with my pattern piece on top. So yeah, remember the finished width or depth of that headband is 4 3/4 inches or 12 centimeters. And I'm just checking now to make sure that my chalk line on the denim is the same on both sides. You could also screen print or use iron-on vinyl on that denim part too to personalize these bands. So top stitch, which I've done. I'm folding it to make notches, so I've notched out the middle of the band, so it makes it easier when I fold the two pieces together and enclose that visor. And then I've made a chalk mark, or I'm making a chalk mark at the top for where the edges of the visor are. So instead of starting in the middle, I'm going to start at one end, and just have the visor sit in between those two notches and work my way over to the other end. Now when I'm using my cloth visor with my stabilizer, it's quite a sturdy visor. So when I'm sewing, I like to put this lighter fabric on the bottom, so right on the feed plate, and I put the visor on top, and I find it easier to sew the two pieces together because it doesn't stretch out that thinner headband fabric. The visor's got so many layers, it makes it nice and strong. So I'm just doing the visor the same way as I did the last one with the peace signs that was cotton. I'm pinning all 4 layers together. I'm going to sew around that outside edge of the visor. Trim away the extra. I've sewn now all 4 together. Trim away the extra at the top. The top is still open, and I'll close that up when I do my top stitching around the bottom. Just going to put a serge in, but you can cut little notches there on the corners. Just do another seam that's inside the edge by about 1/4 inch or so. With the serge though, it just comes out so nicely. If you have a serger, definitely do it this way. No fuss, no muss. So now it's time for the top stitching, and I'll close up the top, and I'm going to notch it in the center. Take off those little bits at the end. And now it's time to sew the band on. So I've decided that the denim insert's going to go on the side that's printed, and then the solid denim underneath the band will be just have that floral print. If you wanted to make it totally reversible, just cut that band in 2 and have one print on one side and a different one on the other. I like that little band though. I think it's nice. You can add a flower or a bow, and it really looks classy, I think. I'm just clipping where the notches are and where my chalk mark is, and I will sew the visor on in between those 2 white chalk marks. It's about 6 centimeters on either side. Well, 5.5 centimeters on from the edge of the band to the edge of the visor, or 2 1/4 inches. So no puckers or tucks. And I'm just rolling that visor slightly. And I have a visor sandwich. So I'll put a pin there just to hold it, and I'm putting those 2 notches together. And I'm gonna put that cotton side on the bottom as I'm sewing so that it doesn't stretch out of shape. And then I've got that heavier piece now that's not going to stretch at all when I'm sewing. And I'm just checking as I go to make sure that the bottom piece is not puckering or not folding over, that everything is lying flat as I sew. And I've also got my magnetic measure there, which I use a lot in this project. And it looks great. So now I'm turning it right side out. Again, I can't use a bodkin for this because it takes a little bit of strength to pull this through, but it's easy. And now I'm just gonna make sure that it's all even, that there's no mistakes. I'll pull it out from the seam and pin it, and then I'm going to press it. And when I press, I'm going to sort of straighten out that headband part. So I won't press down as far as the pins. I'm basically trying to press the top because that's where I'm going to put a top stitch. Just 3/8 of an inch in from that folded top edge. And I'll also give the visor a nice steam as well. And this takes out any of the wrinkles that you might get from your sewing around those curves. And there's my top stitch. Now I'm going to use the 3/4 inch elastic for this. So I've trimmed off extra casing. And I have to say that I think the 3/4 inch elastic is my favorite. I like the look of the 1 inch, but if you make the headband any deeper, it's just going to stick out above your hair, and I like the look of the band at the measurement that it is now. But these are all personal choices. Make sure that you change the pattern however you need to change it. But this is a good foundation. And the visor's a good one. You'll see that it's got good, it's a flattering visor. It doesn't stick straight out. And I'm just sandwiching that elastic right sides together into the end, each end of the headband. And this size elastic is nice because the two edges of the headband meet up perfectly in the middle. So it closes off that seam really nicely. And you're just going to sew back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Give it a good back and forth. So if you can get your hands on some of that 19mm or 3/4 inch wide elastic, by all means use it for this. And now we're nearing the reveal, and I get to try them on. Yay. Ah, love it. This is over my hair. Let me show you what it looks like under my hair. Perfect. And now reversed. Perfect. So I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. It was a long one, and it's a lesson I think that you are going to make good use of, especially if you have a sewing business like I do, because you can use this to supplement your income and use up all the little scraps of fabric that you have lying around your studio. It's a great pattern too to make for men. Just add another inch to the width of that main pattern piece that I gave you, and maybe a little bit more elastic, but play around with it till you get the right size for the men in your life. And just to recap, we're gonna make our own visor material because the stuff that's on the marketplace, this thick, horrible, nasty plastic, is a really awkward shape, and it's not easy to work with when you're sewing. So into the garbage that goes. And you can do lots of modifications. So for example, you can put a bias tape edge on the edge of your foam, or a bias tape band across the front of one of the sides of your main piece of fabric, like I did here. I usually cut about 20 inches and about 3 inches in width, and then just use your iron to press in half and then press again to make those folds, and you'll find that it goes on easily. You're just going to start at one end of your visor before you sew anything else to the visor, and just clip it and sew along. So when you clip it, make sure that you have about the same amount on both sides. You can make it narrower. You don't have to use 3 inches. You can go 2.5, whatever you're comfortable with. And of course, you can add little things to decorate these visors. The bow. You can do a pin. You can do buttons. All sorts of things to make them special. All right, well, if you enjoyed this lesson, please consider subscribing to our channel. We're just getting started. Even though we registered this channel years ago, we only started uploading videos at the end of April. So I'm really pleased how many of you have already come along for this ride. I've had a 36-year career in millinery, in design. I've designed for lots of big companies, including my own brand, which is Madcap Hats. If you don't feel like sewing one of these, I will have them for sale on my website, so you can always buy one from me at www.madcaphats.com. But in any event, we're going to have lots of patterns and lots of lessons to share with you over the next few years as I get ready for my retirement. And I'm really looking forward to doing this, and I hope that you will consider subscribing, comment below, share this channel with all of your sewing friends, and please have fun this summer wearing your new headband with visor. It's a great little item. You're gonna love it, and we'll see you soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.